You know that feeling when someone you love cuts you down in front of everyone, and you're standing there wondering if you should fight back or just disappear? Well, buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you think you know about revenge, family loyalty, and the power of killing someone with kindness. By the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the most devastating response isn't the one that makes noise, but the one that changes everything in complete silence. My name is Sarah, and for 32 years, I've been the younger sister to Manhattan's most successful charity event coordinator, Victoria. Now, when I say successful, I mean this woman could organize a fundraiser for paint drying and somehow raise $500,000 while making everyone feel like they were part of something life-changing. Victoria had this gift, this magnetic personality that drew people in like moths to a flame. She was everything I wasn't: polished, connected, effortlessly elegant, and she never let me forget it. But here's where it gets interesting, and trust me, you're going to want to hear every single detail of what happened next, because this isn't just about sibling rivalry. This is about the moment I realized that sometimes the best way to win is to let everyone else think they're losing while you're actually orchestrating the entire game. Victoria had been planning this gala for 8 months. The annual Children's Hope Foundation benefit dinner, her crown jewel event that brought together New York's elite to raise money for underprivileged kids. She'd called me 3 weeks before, and I could hear that familiar tone in her voice. The one that meant she needed something but was going to make it sound like she was doing me a favor. "Sarah, darling," she'd said, and I already knew where this was heading. "I know you're not really the gala type, but I think it would be wonderful if you came this year. It's for such a good cause. And well, it might be good for you to get out more, meet some people, maybe find someone who appreciates your unique style." There it was, the backhanded invitation wrapped in concern for my social life. But here's what Victoria didn't know, and what makes this story absolutely explosive. I had recently sold my tech startup for $18 million. While she was busy organizing other people's charity events, I had been quietly building something that changed how hospitals manage patient data. The sale had gone through just 2 months earlier, and I hadn't told anyone in my family yet. Why? Because I was tired of being seen as Victoria's struggling little sister who needed help and guidance. Now, before you start thinking I'm just another bitter sibling, let me paint you the full picture of our relationship, because understanding this dynamic is crucial to appreciating what happened next. Victoria wasn't malicious, not exactly. She genuinely believed she was helping me, guiding me, showing me how the world really worked. But there's something particularly crushing about being patronized by someone who loves you, especially when they do it in front of others. The gala was being held at the Metropolitan Club, one of those old-money Manhattan establishments where the marble floors probably cost more than most people's houses. I spent exactly 47 minutes deciding what to wear, which for me was practically a fashion emergency. I'm more comfortable in jeans and a sweater than designer gowns, but I wanted to make an effort for Victoria's big night. I chose a simple, black dress that I'd bought online for $68, paired it with my grandmother's pearl necklace, and called it a day. Looking back, I realized this outfit choice was about to become the catalyst for everything that followed. And honestly, I'm kind of grateful it wasn't anything fancier. When I arrived at the gala, the scene was exactly what you'd expect. Manhattan, philanthropic elite, mingling with champagne glasses, air-kissing acquaintances they saw at the last 3 charity events, and discussing their summer homes in the Hamptons. Victoria was in her element, gliding between groups in a stunning emerald green gown that probably cost more than my rent, making sure everyone felt important and involved. She spotted me from across the room and excused herself from a conversation with what looked like a group of major donors. As she approached, I could see her expression shift from hostess smile to concerned sister mode, and I knew I was about to get the ones over. "Oh, Sarah," she said, reaching me with that tone that immediately made everyone within earshot turn to look. "You made it. And you're wearing, well, that's certainly a choice." Now, here's where you need to pay attention, because this moment right here is where most people would either get defensive or make a scene. But I've learned something over the years about dealing with Victoria. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. So I smiled and said, "Thanks for inviting me, Vic. The venue looks incredible." But Victoria wasn't done. She never was, with a laugh that was meant to sound affectionate but carried just enough edge to cut. She announced to the small group that had gathered around us, "My little sister has always marched to the beat of her own drum fashion-wise. Isn't it refreshing to see someone so confident in their own skin that they don't worry about fitting in?" And there it was. In one seemingly supportive statement, she had managed to point out my outfit to everyone, suggest that I was either clueless or deliberately defiant about appropriate attire, and position herself as the understanding big sister who loved me despite my quirks. It was masterful, really, the kind of social maneuvering that Victoria had perfected over years of navigating New York society. The group chuckled politely, and I saw the looks. You know the ones, that mixture of pity and secondhand embarrassment that people get when they witness someone being put in their place, even if it's done with a smile. One woman actually reached out and patted my arm sympathetically, as if I were a child who had tried her best but missed the mark. This is where the story takes a turn that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. Instead of getting upset or making excuses for my outfit, I simply excused myself and found a quiet corner near the silent auction tables. I pulled out my phone and did something that would change the entire trajectory of the evening, and possibly my relationship with Victoria forever. I opened my banking app and navigated to my investment account. Then I called my financial advisor, Marcus, who despite it being 8:30 on a Saturday evening, answered on the second ring. That's what happens when you have $18 million under management, your calls get answered. Marcus, it's Sarah. I need to make a donation tonight and I need it processed immediately. Of course, what organization and what amount are we talking about? I looked across the room at Victoria, who was now holding court near the main auction display, gesturing animatedly as she explained the impact of the evening's fundraising goals to a captivated audience. The Children's Hope Foundation. $2 million. And Marcus, I need this donation to be made anonymously, but I want it credited in honor of Victoria Chen, my sister. There was a pause. Sarah, did you say $2 million? That's a significant portion of your liquid assets. I know exactly what it is. Can you make it happen tonight? Give me 20 minutes. Now, you might be wondering why I chose $2 million. Was it arbitrary? Was I just trying to make a statement? The truth is more calculated than that. Victoria had mentioned earlier in the week that their goal for the entire evening was $1.8 million. She'd been stressed about reaching it, worried that the economic uncertainty might make people more conservative with their donations. $2 million wouldn't just meet their goal, it would shatter it in a way that would make this gala legendary in New York charity circles. But here's the really beautiful part, and this is where you're going to understand the true genius of what I was doing. By making the donation in Victoria's honor, I wasn't just helping the charity, I was creating a situation where she would be credited with inspiring the largest single donation in the organization's history. Every time someone talked about this gala, every time the foundation shared success stories, Victoria's name would be attached to this transformational gift. While I waited for Marcus to work his magic, I actually started enjoying the party. I bid on a few silent auction items, a weekend in the Berkshires, a private wine tasting, nothing too extravagant. I made conversation with other guests, and you know what I discovered? When you stop worrying about fitting in and just focus on being genuinely interested in other people, social events become a lot more enjoyable. About 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Done. The foundation should receive confirmation within the hour. The donation has been processed as requested. Anonymous donor, in honor of Victoria Chen. Perfect. Now came the waiting game. I have to admit, there was something deliciously anticipatory about knowing what was about to happen while everyone else was completely oblivious. It's like being the only person who knows the end of a movie while watching everyone else get invested. In the plot twists, the formal program began around 9:30. Victoria took the stage looking absolutely radiant, and I felt a familiar mixture of pride and frustration watching her command the room. She really was gifted at this, bringing together her passion for helping children with her natural ability to inspire people to open their wallets for a good cause. She spoke beautifully about the foundation's work, sharing stories of kids whose lives had been transformed by the programs the evening's donations would support. She thanked the major sponsors, recognized the committee members who had worked tirelessly to make the event possible, and then began building toward the evening's fundraising totals. Ladies and gentlemen, when we started planning this evening, we set an ambitious goal of raising $1.8 million for the Children's Hope Foundation. It's a number that would allow us to expand our after-school programs, provide scholarships for 30 additional students, and launch our new mental health support initiative. The room was completely focused on her now, and I could see people mentally calculating their final bids on auction items, wondering if they should increase their pledges. Thanks to your incredible generosity tonight, I'm thrilled to announce that we have not only met our goal, we have exceeded it significantly. The room began to buzz with excitement. Our current total stands at just over $2 million. The applause was thunderous. People were genuinely excited, and why wouldn't they be? They had just participated in something extraordinary, a fundraising total that would be talked about for years. But Victoria wasn't finished, and this is where the evening took on an almost surreal quality. I have to share something extraordinary that happened tonight. Something that speaks to the power of community and the impact of leading by example. About an hour ago, our foundation received a donation that took my breath away. An anonymous donor, inspired by this evening and by the work we're doing, made a single contribution of $2 million. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop on that marble floor. But here's what makes this even more meaningful. This generous individual specifically requested that their donation be made in honor of someone who has dedicated their life to supporting children's causes. That donation, ladies and gentlemen, was made in my honor, and there it was. The moment I had orchestrated, playing out exactly as I had envisioned. Victoria was standing on that stage, overwhelmed with emotion, being celebrated for inspiring a gift that would literally change the trajectory of the organization she cared so deeply about. The applause this time wasn't just enthusiastic, it was sustained, almost reverential. People were standing, and I could see actual tears in some eyes. Victoria was crying too, clearly overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened. But here's what made the moment even more powerful. As the applause continued, Victoria looked out into the audience, and her eyes found mine. For just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Not recognition exactly, but a moment of wondering. A tiny seed of possibility that maybe she didn't know her little sister as well as she thought she did. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and excitement. Victoria was surrounded by people wanting to shake her hand, to be associated with someone who could inspire such generosity. The foundation's executive director pulled her aside for an impromptu interview with a society reporter who had been covering the event. I slipped out around 11, while Victoria was still holding court, still basking in the glow of what everyone believed was recognition of her impact and influence. I didn't say goodbye, didn't make a big exit. I just quietly collected my coat and disappeared into the Manhattan night. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, most of them from Victoria. The last text, sent at 2:47 a.m., simply said, "We need to talk." I waited until noon to call her back. She answered before the first ring finished. "Sarah, where did you go last night? I looked everywhere for you after the announcement. I had an early morning today, so I slipped out. Congratulations. By the way, that anonymous donation was incredible." There was a pause, and I could practically hear the wheels turning in her head. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" "Of course. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that donation, would you?" This was the moment of truth, the moment where I had to decide how much of my hand to reveal. I had several options here. I could deny everything, let her wonder forever. I could tell her the truth and watch her process the implications. Or I could do something else entirely. "Victoria, what would make you think I would know anything about a $2 million donation?" "I don't know, it's just the timing and the way you left, and ... double quotes, and what? You think your little sister who shows up to galas in 6 dresses somehow has access to that kind of money?" The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "Victoria, you've spent 32 years, assuming you know exactly who I am and what I'm capable of. Last night, someone recognized the incredible work you do and wanted to honor that. Maybe instead of looking for hidden motives or secret benefactors, you should just accept that you've made an impact worth celebrating." After we hung up, I realized something profound had shifted between us. Not because of the money though. That was certainly part of it, but because for the first time in our relationship, Victoria was seeing me as someone with the capacity to surprise her. Over the next few weeks, the ripple effects of that donation continued to unfold in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. The Children's Hope Foundation was featured in 3 major publications, with Victoria prominently quoted in each article. The donation had allowed them to fast-track several initiatives that would have taken years to fund through traditional means. But more interesting to me were the subtle changes in how Victoria interacted with me. She started asking my opinion on things, really asking, not just going through the motions of including me in conversations. She invited me to lunch, just the two of us, something we hadn't done in years. During that lunch, she brought up the night of the gala again. "I keep thinking about what you said on the phone, about assuming I know who you are and what you're capable of." I sipped my coffee and waited for her to continue. "I think maybe I have been making assumptions. And maybe I've been so focused on trying to help you fit into my world that I never bothered to understand what your world actually looks like." This was as close to an apology as Victoria had ever come, and honestly, it was more than I had expected. "Vic, I appreciate that, and I should probably tell you something." For a moment, she looked almost nervous, like she was afraid of what I might say. "I sold my company a few months ago. I've been meaning to tell the family, but I wanted to make sure everything was finalized first." "You sold your company?" "The hospital software thing. The hospital software thing. For $18 million. Victoria set down her fork and stared at me for a long moment. Then she started laughing, not the condescending laugh from the gala, but genuine surprised laughter. $18 million. My little sister is worth $18 million, and I've been treating you like you need fashion advice and career guidance. To be fair, I probably do need fashion advice. Sarah, about the gala, about what I said about your outfit. Victoria, it's fine. Really? No, it's not fine. I was condescending and dismissive, and I did it in front of other people. I was being the kind of person I don't actually want to be. This conversation was veering into territory we had never explored before, genuine acknowledgement of the dynamics between us, honest examination of how we treated each other. "Can I ask you something now?" I said. She nodded. "Did you really think that anonymous donation was random? Did you really believe that someone just happened to make a $2 million gift in your honor on the same night I was there?" Victoria smiled, the kind of smile that told me she had figured out more than she had initially let on. "I had my suspicions. Especially after you disappeared without saying goodbye. And especially after the way you handled my question about knowing anything about the donation, and I realized that whether you made that donation or not, the fact that I immediately suspected you meant that maybe I don't know my little sister as well as I thought I did. So here's where we stand now, 6 months later. Victoria still organizes incredible charity events, but she's also started asking for my input on the strategic side of fundraising. She introduced me to the foundation's board, and I've become involved in their technology initiatives, helping them streamline their operations and expand their digital outreach. Our family dynamics have shifted in subtle but significant ways. Victoria no longer feels the need to manage my choices or offer unsolicited advice about my lifestyle. I no longer feel defensive about the differences between us or resentful about her success. But here's the thing that I think about most often, and this is the part of the story that I hope you'll remember long after you've forgotten the specific details. The most powerful response to being underestimated isn't to prove everyone wrong. In spectacular fashion, it's to quietly exceed expectations while lifting up the people who doubted you. That $2 million donation didn't just help children in need, though that's obviously the most important outcome. It didn't just make Victoria's Gala legendary, though that was satisfying in its own way. What it really did was create space for both of us to see each other more clearly, without the assumptions and defensive patterns that had defined our relationship for decades. Victoria learned that her little sister was capable of surprises, that the person she had been trying to guide and shape was actually doing quite well on her own path. I learned that Victoria's condescension often came from a genuine place of caring, even if it was expressed in ways that felt dismissive. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone should make multi-million-dollar donations to prove a point to their siblings, but I am suggesting that sometimes the most transformative response to being diminished is to respond with generosity instead of defensiveness, with action instead of argument. The morning after the gala, I woke up knowing that I had changed the trajectory of a charitable organization, honored my sister's work in a way that would benefit her for years to come, and demonstrated that quiet confidence can be more powerful than loud confrontation. But perhaps most importantly, I had learned something about myself. For years, I had allowed Victoria's perceptions of me to influence how I saw myself. I had internalized her view of me as someone who needed guidance, someone who was slightly out of step with the world she inhabited. That night at the gala, standing in my $68 dress while writing a $2 million check, I realized that I had been giving other people too much power over my sense of self-worth. I had been allowing their limitations and seeing me to become limitations in how I saw myself. The beautiful irony is that by making that donation in Victoria's honor, I wasn't just challenging her assumptions about me. I was challenging my own assumptions about what I was capable of, about how I wanted to show up in the world, about the kind of impact I could make when I stopped worrying about other people's expectations. 6 months later, Victoria and I have found our way to a relationship that's based on mutual respect rather than historical patterns. She still organizes incredible events, but now she sometimes asks for my advice on donor strategy and technology integration. I still prefer jeans to gowns, but I show up to her events as a partner rather than as someone who needs to be accommodated. The Children's Hope Foundation has expanded their programs beyond what they thought possible, and Victoria has been recognized by several organizations for her innovative approach to fundraising. Every time I see her name in an article or hear someone talking about that legendary gala, I feel a deep satisfaction knowing that I played a role in creating opportunities for her to shine. But the real victory isn't in the recognition or the program expansion or even in the improved relationship with my sister. The real victory is in discovering that the most powerful way to respond to being underestimated is to exceed expectations so thoroughly that everyone involved, including yourself, has to reconsider what they thought they knew about what's possible. So the next time someone makes assumptions about who you are or what you're capable of, remember this story. Remember that you have choices about how to respond. You can get defensive, you can make a scene, you can fight back with equal energy, or you can do something so unexpectedly generous, so quietly powerful, that it changes everyone's understanding of the situation, including your own. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's grace under pressure, generosity, in the face of dismissal, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are, regardless of who other people think you should be. And that, more than any gala dress or social connection or family approval, is worth celebrating. What do you think? Have you ever been in a situation where someone underestimated you, and how did you choose to respond? I'd love to hear your thoughts about whether quiet confidence or direct confrontation is more effective when dealing with family dynamics like these. Share your experiences in the comments, because these stories of personal growth and family relationships are what connect us all as human beings trying to figure out how to treat each other with dignity and respect.